This is a rusty, broken-down excavator in an abandoned mine. Rotting away as scrap metal was supposed to be its ultimate fate. But the moment you laid eyes on it, you decided to drain all your energy to forcefully transform this scrap from a bygone era into a towering fortress of war. All because you awakened the universal mechanical ascension system. By simply burning your mental energy, you can awaken any inorganic or semi-organic matter into a mechanical creation. These awakened creations can even merge together into colossal titan behemoths. But right now, as the heavy rain comes crashing down, you're lying there like a dead dog, having just been violently kicked out the back of an SUV straight into the muddy waters of the wasteland's forbidden zone. Your shattered leg hits the ground first. A piercing, agonizing pain instantly explodes deep within the wound. The agony makes your vision go pitch black, but before you can even catch your breath, a mud-caked military boot stomps heavily onto the back of your head, violently shoving your face deep into the filthy water. Shen Bei, don't be in such a rush to die. The voice echoing from above belongs to Scarface, the Megacorp's mercenary boss. His sickening, mocking tone makes your stomach turn. Then, he violently grabs you by the hair, forcing you to look up. At that exact moment, holographic projection suddenly flickers to life in the pouring rain. On the screen is a high-rise rooftop, and there's Lu Zi, and your little sister, Shen Yao, wearing that faded, worn-out dress she's washed 1,000 times. Just one glance, and your pupils shrink to pinpoints. Lu Zi is forcing her step by step toward the edge of the roof, treating her like a dying rat. He smiles with a sick, cruel delight. Jump, doesn't your precious brother love you the most? If you jump off right now, I might just consider letting him live. And Shen Yao's voice, it's already shaking uncontrollably from the torture. You promised me. My brother took the fall for your crimes. You said you'd pay my medical bills. You said you'd take care of him. But Lu Zi drops the act entirely. Right in front of you. He laughs, tearing away all his lies. He tells her the medical bills were nothing but a sick joke. He tells her that when he sent his men to visit her every day, it was to force her to her knees, to make her bark like a dog. He sneers that outer ring trash like you only exist for their sick entertainment. Every single word twists like a blade in your heart. Only then do you finally realize the truth. By taking the fall for Lu Zi and going to prison, you didn't just ruin your own life. You practically shoved your own sister straight into hell. And then, on the screen, Shen Yao looks directly into the camera. It's as if she's looking right at you. She gives a tragic, broken smile. There's absolutely no life left in her eyes. Only the crushing exhaustion of someone utterly destroyed. I'm sorry, Yao Yao can't wait for you anymore. Yao Yao feels so dirty, so tired. And in the next second, she opens her arms, like a butterfly with broken wings. She falls from the 100-meter-high rooftop, and the transmission instantly cuts to black. But your entire world comes crashing down right along with it. No, you thrash around in the mud like a madman. Your fingers dig so fiercely into the sludge that your knuckles turn stark white. Blood seeps from your nails, mixing with the filthy water. But your shattered leg makes it impossible to even stand. Pinned to the ground like a dying stray dog, your voice tears from your throat. As you scream out a blood-soaked vow, Lu Zi, the Lu family, even if I, Shen Bei, have to crawl back from hell as a vengeful ghost, I swear I will make you pay the ultimate, agonizing price. Scarface just laughed, and when he'd finally had his fill, he snapped the projection shut, and kicked you hard to the ground. Just lay here and rot, he sneered. Those little cuties out here in the dead zone will catch your scent soon enough. With that, he and his goons piled into their rig and sped off. The off-road vehicle kicked up a massive wave of muddy water, vanishing toward the towering city walls. Now, in this desolate wasteland, there was only the pouring rain, and a suffocating silence. You lay flat on your back in the freezing mud, staring up at the ash-gray sky. Your chest felt completely hollowed out. Revenge? You couldn't even stand up. But right at that moment, deep within the ruins, a slow, bone-chilling scraping sound echoed out. Scrape. Scrape. You forced your head to turn. Out of the shadows, 3 pairs of glowing, sickly green eyes locked onto you. Mutant hyenas, the absolute bottom-feeding predators of the dead zone. They loved stalking crippled prey, watching them slowly fade away in pure terror. Right before jumping in for the kill, they crept closer, step by agonizing step. Foul drool splattered into the mud, carrying a rotten stench that made your stomach heave. Despair washed over you like a tidal wave, drowning out everything else. You couldn't accept it, you hadn't made them pay for your little sister. But the alpha hyena was already out of patience. With a guttural snarl, it lunged straight for your neck, just as its razor-sharp fangs were inches from tearing your throat out. Your survival instinct kicked into overdrive. You thrashed your hands blindly through the mud, and your fingers desperately locked onto a rusted scrap of armor plating. And in that exact second, an icy, robotic voice exploded in your head. Detecting host's extreme will to survive. Survival drive at maximum capacity. Binding conditions met. Omni-Mech Ascension System, bound successfully. System? Your mind spun, but you didn't even have a split second to process it. Right after, a rush of data flooded your brain. Starter pack unlocked. Basic mental power, times 100. Core function activated. The Midas touch. Host may expend mental power to transmute touched inorganic and semi-organic matter into mechanical constructs. The very next heartbeat, the beast's jaws were right in your face. You had zero time to figure this out. You went on pure instinct, screaming in your head, transmute. Transmute it, damn it. Every drop of your mental energy surged straight into the scrap metal in your hand. The rusted iron melted instantly like wax, before rapidly reassembling right in your palm. Countless tiny gears, connecting rods, and bearings snapped together, accompanied by a satisfying series of sharp mechanical clicks. In barely a second, a palm-sized, pitch-black mechanical spider with glowing crimson compound eyes took shape in your hand. Transmutation successful. Construct. Self-destruct mech spider. Level 3. And in that exact same fraction of a second, the hyena's fangs grazed the skin of your neck. A deadly glare flashed in your eyes, and you barely had time to fire off a single command. Go. The mechanical spider launched itself instantly, turning into a blur of black. Right before the hyena snapped its jaws shut, it darted straight into its mouth. The beast froze for a split second, but you forced a single word out of your throat. Detonate. Boom. A massive explosion ripped through the air. The alpha hyena's head was completely obliterated right in front of your eyes. Boiling hot blood mixed with the rain, splashing all over your face and body. The other two hyenas lost their minds in terror. They tucked their tails and whimpered, turning tail to bolt back into the darkness. Meanwhile, you lay there in the mud, staring at the beast's mangled corpse. For a moment, your heart skipped a beat. The counterattack was way too fast, and way too brutal, but before you could even catch your breath, the system's voice chimed in again. Basic biological energy detected. Tier 1 mutant beast crystal core. Do you wish to absorb? Used for cybernetic flesh replacement. Absorb to reconstruct both legs. This time, you didn't hesitate for a second. You grabbed the crystal core, and it instantly melted into a warm current of energy, rushing wildly through your veins down to your legs. And then, the agony hit you like a freight train. That kind of pain, it was nothing like a broken bone. It felt like countless nanobots of liquid metal were drilling directly into the open wounds of your shattered legs, forcefully rebuilding your ruined limbs. Metal and nerves were fusing together, forging a deep connection amidst the searing heat and blinding pain. Your damaged tissues were ripped apart, replaced by something infinitely stronger. Every single second felt like an eternity. You were convulsing in pure agony, veins popping on your forehead, biting your lips so hard it bled. Yet from start to finish, you didn't let out a single cry for mercy. Because you knew, this was your one and only chance. You lost track of time, but eventually, that hellish surgery came to an end. You looked down, the flesh and blood below your knees were completely gone. In their place was a pair of dark silver, mechanical prosthetic legs. Streamlined alloy armor plating, exposed hydraulic pistons, synthetic bionic tendons, every inch of them screamed of cold, ruthless, high-tech power. Basic mechanical leg modification complete. Base running and jumping capabilities increased by 300%. Basic kinetic energy transfer unlocked. You took a deep breath, pushed off the ground, and stood up. A second later, you were actually standing on your own 2 feet again. Your mechanical soul stomped into the puddles, letting out a heavy, sharp clack. At that moment, you felt like you had literally crawled your way back out of the grave. Testing out your new strength, you launched a vicious roundhouse kick straight into a waist-high concrete block nearby. Smash! The solid concrete completely shattered on impact, sending rubble flying everywhere. You stared down at your mechanical legs, your breathing growing heavier by the second. The sheer power, the speed, the stability, it all completely outclassed normal human flesh and blood. But you quickly forced yourself to calm down. Just having a pair of metal legs wasn't enough to smash through the high walls, let alone crush the Liu family. Because what you wanted was never just a one-man revenge mission. What you need is firepower, a legion, a mechanical flood that can grind every last one of your enemies into dust. And so, you slowly raise your head, looking at the massive wall in the distance that splits the world in two. Inside that wall, the lights are blinding, like a realm of gods. Outside, it's just mud and rot, where human lives are as cheap as weeds. Your voice whispers into the rainy night. Flesh is weak, metal ascends, and truth only exists within firing range. Right after that, you turn and walk toward the massive junkyard nearby. It's piled high with scrapped cars, industrial waste, broken steel rebar, and rusted gears. To anyone else, it's just a metal graveyard. But to you, it's an ocean of steel. Your true armory. The moment you rush in, you start awakening the metal like a madman. You grab a steel bar. Awaken. You press down on a gearbox. Awaken. You stomp onto a busted engine. Awaken. Chunks of scrap metal melt in your hands. Reassembling, transforming. Pitch black mechanical spiders awaken from the trash piles, one after another. They silently crawl onto the roofs of ruined cars, slip between the rebar, and lurk beneath chunks of concrete. Their scarlet compound eyes blink in the dark, like ghost fire flaring up from hell. 1, 5, 20, until the 50th explosive mechanical spider is born. Your mental energy is finally drained dry. A splitting headache, ringing in your ears, and extreme dizziness hit you all at once. You lean against a wrecked car, your face as pale as a ghost. But when you look up and scan the area, the entire junkyard is swarming. Covered in red dots, 50 walking bombs, and this is only the beginning. Soon after, the system flashes another prompt. Detected mechanical creations exceeding 10. Unlocking basic AI module. Jarvis. Unlocking new feature. Hive mind. Your heart leaps. You test out a command. Formation. The very next second, all 50 scattered mechanical spiders instantly crawl out, rapidly lining up into a perfectly neat phalanx right in front of you. You issue another command. Conceal. They scatter in a flash, diving back into the shadows, beneath the wrecked cars, and into the cracks of the trash piles. All the red lights blink out at once, as if they were never even there. You finally can't hold back a low chuckle. With Jarvis and Hive Mind, these mechanical creations are no longer just random bombs. They are the true beginnings of a legion. However, right at that moment, the sudden roar of an off-road vehicle's engine echoes from the distance. It's Scarface and his crew. They actually came back. They probably want to film your mangled corpse after the mutant beasts tear you apart, just to bring it back and entertain Lu Zi. But when they brave the rain and return to the exact spot they dumped you, what they find isn't a mangled corpse. Instead, they found the mangled carcass of a mutant beast and utter wreckage. The men froze in their tracks. A deep sense of dread crept over Scarface. He roared, demanding you get the hell out here. But the answer they got wasn't human. It was the heavy, rhythmic thud of metal footsteps. Clang. You slowly emerged from the shadows of the scrapyard, standing tall in the pouring rain. Your mechanical legs gleamed with a cold, dark silver in the flashlight beams. Your face was splattered with grime, yet your eyes were as dead and calm as an abyss. Scarface's expression dropped instantly. Your legs. He couldn't wrap his head around it. He had shattered your legs with his own 2 hands. How the hell did they turn into this in such a short time? But before his brain could process it, his body reacted first. Pure terror. Open fire. Take him down. Gunfire instantly ripped through the heavy rain. A dense storm of lead rained down on you, wildly spraying in your direction. But the outcome was more terrifying than Scarface could have ever imagined. You dodged most of the bullets with ease. The few that actually hit your mechanical limbs just sparked and bounced off. They didn't even leave a scratch. You didn't miss a single step. You just kept walking forward. The 5 men opposite you finally panicked. But when you were about 10 meters away from them, you suddenly stopped. You slowly raised your hand, and snapped your fingers. The sound wasn't loud, but to their ears, it echoed like the Grim Reaper's gavel. The very next second, lifeless piles of scrap, and rusted out cars all around them. Even the cracks in the concrete suddenly lit up. 1 red dot, then dozens of red dots. 50 mechanical spiders crawled out from every direction, swarming the area. They trapped the men dead in the center. The suffocating terror of being boxed in by a swarm of steel bugs was far more bone-chilling than any mutant beast attack. Skinny wet himself right then and there. Scarface frantically screamed into his comms for backup, but the signal had already been jammed completely by your bot network. All that came back was BZZT, the static hiss of dead air. You stared at them, like a butcher staring down pigs waiting for the slaughter. Now, who's the hunter? No one could answer you. So, you just waved your hand, and said just one word, go. 10 suicide spiders launched into the air, darting forward like 10 black arrows. They latched onto thighs, they clamped down on skulls. They dug their hooks deep into chests, locking onto the bodies of every single merc. The men thrashed around like lunatics, but those metal claws wouldn't budge an inch. The very next second, boom, a chain of explosive blasts ripped through the rainy night. Shattered remains, shattered gear, and shockwaves blasted up into the sky, before crashing right back down into the mud. Once the smoke cleared, the clearing was nothing but a mess of scorched earth. But Scarface was still clinging to his last breath, severely wounded. He could only lie there, convulsing in the mud. You walked over, face utterly blank. You picked up a fallen camera from the dirt, and pointed the lens right at your own rain-soaked face. You enunciate every single word. Lu Z, say your prayers, I'm coming for you. With that said, you stop the recording. Under Scarface's terrified gaze, you raise your mechanical leg, and stomp down without mercy, ending his life once and for all. Then, you start looting the body. Ammo, an assault rifle, a tactical terminal, a comms device. You don't leave a single useful item behind. But just as you pop open the trunk of the SUV, you freeze. Inside sits a massive iron cage. It's draped in a black cloth, with dark red bloodstains splattered all around the bars. And from beneath that cloth, comes an incredibly faint whimpering sound. Like a baby, or a dying little beast. You snap the padlock off first, then rip the black cloth away in one swift motion. But what's inside the cage isn't a human child. It's a stray dog, completely soaked in blood, covered in brutal scars, with its vital signs fading to the absolute limit. It's clearly on the verge of death. The system immediately warns you that it has almost zero value for cybernetic modification. But just as you're about to look away, you suddenly notice. It is biting down furiously on a rag doll. The doll is battered, blood-stained, and missing an eye. But you recognize it in a heartbeat. 3 years ago, you saved up half a year's pay to buy that exact birthday gift for your little sister, Shen Yao. You still remember how her eyes lit up as she hugged it, saying she was going to name it Little Bay, so it would feel like her big brother was always right there with her. The memory sears into your brain like a red-hot branding iron. You can't help but reach your hand out, but the dying stray suddenly bares its teeth and lets out a low growl. Even though it can't even stand up, it is still desperately trying to protect that doll. It's protecting the very last trace of Shen Yao. In that moment, you suddenly don't see it as just a dog anymore. You just feel that it's exactly like you. Both of you are outcasts, abandoned by this world, trampled into the dirt, yet still clinging desperately to that one last thing, refusing to let go. Your hand hovers in the air, but you don't take the doll. Instead, you gently pet its blood-soaked head. From today on, you don't have to wander anymore. Right after that, you pull out all the crystal cores you just looted. 1 from the hyena, plus the ones looted off the mercenaries. 5 cores in total. The system immediately flashes a warning. Target is too fragile. Biomechanical fusion success rate is under 10%. Failure will result in total annihilation. You reply with just a single word, upgrade. In the very next second, all 5 crystal cores melt down simultaneously, turning into a stream of liquid silver that completely engulfs the stray dog. It lets out a miserable howl as its broken body is forcibly reconstructed by the raw mechanical power. Its shattered spine is flawlessly replaced by a metal skeleton, and its fading pulse begins pumping coolant laced with nanomachines. This transformation is savage, extreme, and absolutely merciless. But against all odds, it survived. When the blinding silver light faded, what stood in the cage was no longer that dying stray dog, but a beast covered head to toe in dark silver armor. A massive mechanical battle wolf, standing nearly a meter tall at the shoulder and over 2 meters long. Evolution successful. Creation. Mechanical battle wolf. Level 3. Its limbs were built with heavy-duty hydraulics. Its alloy claws gleamed with a deadly chill, and its scarlet electronic eyes burned like hellfire. Yet, when it walked up to you, it simply lowered its massive head and gently nudged your mechanical leg with its cold metal snout. Right after that, it opened its jaws and dropped that little doll perfectly intact right at your feet. You picked up the doll, gently wiping away the mud. Then you looked up at the mechanical battle wolf and gave it its very first command. Attack that car. In the blink of an eye, it became a blur of silver. Crossed the 10+ meters in a flash. Suddenly, there was a deafening screech. That rugged off-road vehicle was brutally sliced clean in half, right down the middle, from bumper to bumper. The cut was as smooth as if it had been sliced by a high-powered laser. Watching this, a cold, ruthless smile finally crept onto your face. The suicide spiders were only good for sneak attacks. The spider swarm could ambush a small squad. But now, you finally had a heavy assault unit that could charge head-on and tear enemy frontlines to shreds. But the show wasn't over. The tactical comms unit you just looted suddenly buzzed with heavy static. Right after, a harsh, booming voice exploded through the speaker, demanding to know why Scarface hadn't reported back yet. They barked out the Liu family's orders. Your corpse had to be brought back. The Black Dragon Gang's main forces had already reached the edge of the restricted zone. In exactly 3 minutes, they would carpet bomb the entire junkyard. The Black Dragon Gang, the Liu family's dirtiest, most ruthless hired thugs in the restricted zone. After hearing this, you didn't panic at all. Instead, a twisted grin spread across your face. Looks like fresh fodder is knocking right at my door. Without hesitating, you tapped right into Jarvis's hive mind network and issued a new command. You ordered all the remaining spiders to burrow deep underground, hiding beneath the trash heaps and wrecked cars. They began spinning a deadly network of traps. Very soon, the ground in the distance began to rumble. Dozens of blinding headlights slashed through the heavy night rain. Over 30 heavily modified armored trucks rumbled in from every direction, closing the net. A menacing black dragon was spray-painted on every chassis. Heavy machine guns were welded to their roofs, and their roll cages jutted out like the wicked fangs of a beast. But far deadlier than the armored trucks were the scumbags jumping out of them. Over 300 heavily armed thugs, every single one packing an assault rifle. Their eyes were filled with pure malice, reeking of the violent, bloodthirsty stench that only survivors of the restricted zone had. Standing right on top of the lead truck was a massive, shirtless, one-eyed brute. His muscles bulged like solid rock, and he casually rested a ridiculously huge broadsword, as thick as a door, over his shoulder. This was the boss of the Black Dragon Gang, Cyclops, a genuine, Tier 2 strength type awakened. He roared at the top of his lungs. Whoever drags Shen Bei out here, whoever catches that bastard alive so we can torture him to pieces, gets 10 times the bounty. Instantly, the mob of thugs went completely rabid. Roaring, they stormed into the scrapyard. But the deeper they pushed in, the more something felt off. It was dead quiet, no monsters, no gunfire, not a single breath to be heard, just the sound of the rain, and that brutalized off-road vehicle from earlier. But at this exact moment, you were perched on top of a 100-meter-tall abandoned signal tower, letting the rain wash over you. Through the mechanical werewolf's optical sensors and Jarvis's swarm network, the entire scrapyard looked like a real-time tactical map from above. Those 300 glowing thermal signatures were stepping right into the web of death you had laid out for them. Report, target entry percentage in the kill zone. Commander, 92% of targets have entered the Sector A explosive grid. You slowly pulled the cigarette from your lips, keeping it unlit. You just watched the crowd below in dead silence, until one of the thugs stepped on a loose steel plate. He kicked it aside without thinking, revealing a pitch-black, mechanical spider underneath, its glowing red compound eyes staring dead at him. The hair on his neck stood on end. He opened his mouth to scream. But, in that exact split second, you flicked your unlit cigarette off the tower and pushed the most simple, ruthless command through the swarm network. Detonate. The very next second, the heart of the scrapyard erupted. It wasn't just a single blast. It was an entire wave. The whole explosive grid triggered at the exact same time. Boom, the earth shuddered like it just took a massive punch. The ground caved in and violently shook. Dirt, rebar, shattered car chassis, weapon fragments, and all those screaming thugs were blown sky high by the blast wave, raining back down like twisted shrapnel. The same thugs who were just screaming about claiming your bounty couldn't even force out a full scream. The blast swallowed them alive. The shockwave flipped several armored trucks like cheap toys. Machine gun mounts twisted like pretzels, and towering pillars of fire erupted. The entire place was bathed in a bloody, crimson light. With just that single strike, half of the Black Dragon Gang's 300-man blockade was wiped off the map. But the real nightmare had only just begun. Before the smoke and dust could even settle, a fierce, metallic wolf howl tore through the scrapyard. The war wolf made its move, leaving a silver streak in its wake. It launched itself from behind a mountain of junk right into the panicked mob. One thug barely raised his rifle before a devastating swipe of its claws ripped him apart. Another spun around to flee, only to get pinned down and instantly slaughtered. It was like a spinning alloy buzzsaw, carving its way back and forth through the crowd. Ripping flesh, harvesting lives, bullets bounced off its armor in a shower of useless sparks. Nothing could even slow it down. And so, the survivors finally broke. They dropped their guns, screaming and crying as they turned and ran for their lives, like cornered animals locked inside a slaughterhouse. But right at that moment, One Eye stepped out of the chaos. Thanks to his Stage 2 awakened reflexes, he had managed to dodge the deadliest part of the blast. But he still got blasted back by the shockwave, his arm dripping with blood. But a scratch like that? It only fueled his absolute rage. "Don't you dare fall back," he roared, his muscles pumped up like balloons, thick veins bulging under his skin. He literally grew a whole head taller, the ground beneath his feet shattering with a boom. Launching himself like a cannonball right at the mecha wolf, his heavy greatsword ripped through the pouring rain. Screeching with a deafening sonic boom, he brought the blade crashing down. Shatter, damn it, the sheer force of that strike blew the rainwater away before the blade even hit. But the mecha wolf didn't flinch. Its glowing red, cybernetic eyes flared to life. It violently threw up an alloy claw, taking the strike head-on. A split second later, clang, blade and claw collided head-on, sending an ear-piercing screech of metal tearing through the rainy night. Sparks showered like a waterfall, as a massive white shockwave blasted outward from the impact. Mud, gravel, and scattered debris were instantly blown away. One Eye's face instantly dropped, because from that single strike, not only did he fail to cut the mecha wolf, the terrifying recoil actually sent him staggering back 3 full steps. The webbing of his hands ripped wide open, blood dripping right down the hilt. He looked down, only to see that the edge of his ridiculously expensive alloy greatsword had a chip the size of a grain of rice, yet, on the claws of the mecha wolf standing right in front of him, there wasn't even a single scratch. In that exact moment, One Eye finally panicked. He was a Tier 2 strength awakener. That strike could have easily shattered solid boulders. But now, he actually couldn't even scratch a wolf. Not even its armor. But before he could even snap out of his pure shock, the mecha wolf made its move. It didn't let out a roar. And it definitely didn't hesitate. Its glowing red cybernetic eyes just flared up once more. A split second later, the entire beast turned into a blinding silver blur. It vanished into thin air. It was way too fast. So fast that One Eye barely managed to bring his blade up on pure instinct. But the mecha wolf's target wasn't his chest at all. With a stomach-turning crunch of metal grinding against bone, One Eye let out a blood-curdling scream. He watched in absolute horror as the mecha wolf's monstrous bite force completely crushed his sword-wielding right arm to an absolute pulp. Amidst the agonizing screams, One Eye clutched his mangled shoulder, stumbling backwards, his face twisted in sheer agony. All that tough guy attitude? All that cocky arrogance? It was completely wiped out in an instant. Nothing was left but pure, primal fear. And the moment he fell back, it completely shattered the mental defenses of the remaining Black Dragon Gang thugs. The boss is done for. Run for your lives. That thing is a monster. It's a freaking demon. The same thugs who were just bravely charging forward with their big guns in numbers, instantly scattered like rats. They didn't even bother picking up their dropped guns. They just wanted to get the hell away from this slaughterhouse. But unfortunately for them, Shenbei never planned on letting a single one of them leave alive. The mecha wolf let out a low, menacing growl, before lunging straight into the fleeing crowd. It was like a high-speed, flesh-grinding war machine. Everywhere it went, the thugs were sent flying and crushed into the dirt, absolutely powerless to fight back. Meanwhile, at the top of an abandoned signal tower, 100 meters in the air, you calmly mounted your captured assault rifle. You didn't just spray wildly into the crowd. Because, thanks to Jarvis marking your targets, You knew exactly who was manning the heavy weapons, who the squad leaders were, and who was trying to call for backup. You could see them all plain as day. And so, your rifle cracked again and again. Bang! Thug scrambling for the heavy machine gun dropped dead. Bang! A squad leader, cowering behind a car and screaming into his radio, was killed instantly, face planting straight into the mud. The shots were paced, but every single bullet was a guaranteed kill. Down below, your mechanical werewolves tore through them head-on. Up above, you picked them off like the Grim Reaper himself. In less than 10 minutes, this elite 300-man strike force from the Black Dragon Gang had been utterly wiped out, completely crushed under your boot. The few dozen stragglers lucky enough to still be breathing finally broke, sobbing and screaming as they bolted for the junkyard exit. But just as they thought they were going to make it out, boom, a shadow plummeted straight down from the 100-meter tower. It was you. Your mechanical prosthetics slammed into the earth. The muddy ground instantly caved in, spiderweb cracks exploding outward. You slowly stood up, standing deadpan in front of the terrified mob. You completely cut off their only escape route. Since you're here, none of you are leaving. Your voice wasn't loud, but as it hit their ears, it was more bone-chilling than any gunfire or explosions. One of them instinctively raised his gun, but before he could even pull the trigger, you raised your hand, and casually snapped your fingers. Snap! The very next second, from the mud beneath the thug's feet, from the overturned vehicles nearby, from the scrap chassis and the piles of shattered parts, terrifying, dense wave of mechanical clicking suddenly echoed all at once. Click, clack, click. Then, one after another, brand new mechanical spiders crawled right out of the shadows and the dirt. These were the fresh recruits you had quietly spawned during the firefight, using the newly absorbed crystal core energy. The Black Dragon thugs, who were just running for their lives, saw this and completely lost their minds. There's more? A demon? You're a freaking demon, but you couldn't be bothered to explain anything to dead men. You just coldly spat out 3 words. Time to eat. In a flash, the explosions started again. Boom, 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 boom. A wave of self-detonations, even heavier than before, chained together like a relentless downpour. The black mechanical tide crashed into the crowd, swallowing the last few dozen survivors completely. Agonizing screams, begging, and the roar of explosions all blurred into one chaotic symphony. And then, everything returned to a dead, empty silence. The rain kept pouring. In the entire junkyard, besides you and your mechanical creations, there wasn't a single living soul left standing. There's still one left. You crunched over the scattered mech wreckage and fallen bodies. You slowly walk up to One Eye, the Black Dragon Gang boss who was just screaming about shattering your bones, inch by inch. Right now, he's barely clinging to life. His wounds are horrific, completely broken, dragging himself through the muddy water, inch by inch, like a squashed bug. Hearing your footsteps, his entire body freezes. Please don't kill me. His voice shakes uncontrollably. It was Lu Z. It was all Lu Z's orders. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm begging you, just spare my life. But as you stare down at him, all you can think about is the humiliation of having your own legs shattered. You think of the absolute despair when your sister threw herself off that building. Pity? That kind of thing died a long time ago, right alongside Shen Yao. So, you slowly raise your mechanical right leg, and bring it down hard. Bang! A dull, sickening thud echoes out, snapping as easily as a dry twig. One Eye's body convulses once. The light in his one remaining eye completely fades away. After that, you start sweeping the battlefield. Weapons, ammo, spare parts, armor plating, bio-crystals. You don't miss a single piece of usable scrap, especially the bio-crystals scattered across the mud. You pick them up, one by one, and absorb them. 1, 2, 10. By the end of it, you've devoured a full 27 Tier 1 bio-crystals. The energy bar on your system interface shoots up. Energy reserves at 78%. Warning, energy reserves reaching critical mass. Please expend energy or upgrade immediately. But right at that very moment, the mud-caked tactical comms unit on One Eye's belt suddenly starts vibrating violently. The screen lights up. There's only one name flashing on it. Young Master Lu Z. You freeze for a second. Then, you slowly pick up the comms unit. A smirk creeps across your face. It's a dark, chilling smile, laced with a sick, almost twisted sense of joy. You hit answer. Meanwhile, safe behind the high walls, inside the Lu family estate, The vaulted ceilings are blindingly bright, crystal chandeliers scattering light like diamonds. The air is thick with the scent of champagne, heavy perfume, and obscenely expensive food. The whole banquet hall reeks of a sickening decadence, completely cut off from the hell of the wasteland outside. And Lu Zi is lounging on the center sofa, draped in a tailored white suit. He's got a heavily made-up woman wrapped in his arms. He looks completely bored, like he just ordered someone to squash a bug. The woman purrs at him, that little pest out in the dead zone. Has it been taken care of yet? Lu Zi swirls his drink, flashing a careless, arrogant smirk. He's just a crippled piece of trash. I sent One Eye out there with 300 men. By now, the wild dogs have probably picked his bones clean. But right at that moment, his private comms beep. It's One Eye's private channel. Lu Zi didn't even look before picking up the call. His tone was even teasing. One Eye, did you get the video? Remember, the angle has to be perfect. I want to clearly see the look of despair on that loser's face when he begs for his life. But instead of One Eye's gruff laughter on the other end, there was only a burst of static. After a moment of dead silence, a low, gravelly voice, sounding like grinding metal, slowly spoke up. How's the champagne tasting? With just those words, Lu Zi completely froze. His hand trembled, and the glass crashed onto the marble floor, shattering into pieces. The music and laughter in the entire banquet hall suddenly stopped. Everyone stared in surprise, but the real nightmare was just beginning. The communicator forcefully triggered a holographic projection, casting a beam of light right in the middle of the room. The image didn't show Shen Bei's dead body. It showed a battlefield straight out of hell. Overturned, burning armored vehicles. Devastation everywhere. The Black Dragon Gang's logo was completely smeared with ash and mud. And right in the center of the carnage, a mechanical werewolf, over 2 meters long, covered head to toe in dark silver armor, stood perfectly still. Its paws were planted down on the shredded flag of the Black Dragon Gang. And its glowing red electronic eyes swept across the projection. It felt like the entire banquet hall was being choked by an invisible hand. The wealthy women and socialites instantly shrieked and backed away, while Lu Zi felt his legs give out, collapsing onto the floor. Then, the camera slowly panned up, and appearing in the hologram, was your face, streaked with mud and rain, but so ice-cold that it showed zero emotion. What was even more terrifying, was that you were on your feet, standing alive right in the middle of that slaughterhouse. As the projection tilted down again, One Eye's massive body was slumped at your feet like a pile of sludge, brutally beaten. Looking completely pathetic, with only his single eye darting around in pure terror. He gasped out a broken plea. Mr. Lu, save, but before he could even finish the word, you had already raised your mechanical right foot. No, Lu Zi shrieked from the banquet hall, his voice completely cracking. But a second later, the foot in the hologram stomped down anyway. One Eye's wails were instantly cut short. Dead silence. The banquet hall was quiet as a graveyard. Everyone's faces were as white as sheets. People started shaking. Some covered their mouths, gagging. As for Lu Zi, he was so terrified that he pissed his pants, completely paralyzed on the floor. He couldn't even form a coherent sentence. Right then, you aimed the camera back at yourself. Through the hologram, you stared straight at Lu Zi. There was no wild fury in your eyes. No roaring anger. Only a chilling calmness that made everyone's skin crawl. Wash your neck, you spoke, emphasizing every single syllable. In 3 days, I will be knocking on your door. And with that, you didn't even give Lu Zi a chance to reply. You clench your fist, instantly crushing the military comms unit into a useless ball of scrap metal. The hologram cuts out abruptly. Back in the Lu family banquet hall, nothing remains but shattered glass across the floor, a crowd of pale, terrified elites, and a tycoon's brat completely paralyzed by fear. Meanwhile, in the junkyard, the rain keeps washing over the shattered comms unit. You slowly look up, staring at the massive wall in the distance. But deep down, you know the harsh truth. The tiny bit of power you have right now isn't nearly enough to bust down that door. You might be able to wipe out the Black Dragon Gang, but storming the inner walls? Crushing the Lu family? You're not even close. You need heavy firepower. You need something that can actually tear down a fortress. So, you instantly pull up the restricted zone map you hacked from One Eye's comms unit. Black Dragon outposts, warehouses, and resource points pop up on the screen. But your eyes, locked dead onto a deep, red zone marked with a skull. An abandoned mine. The note is brief, but it screams danger. Warning, high-intensity energy signatures detected in this area. Suspected presence of a dormant behemoth. Do not approach. You stare at those words, and actually let out a smirk. A behemoth, huh? Perfect timing. By the time the rain stops, it's still pitch black. In your system interface, the countdown is already ticking. Time left, until you come knocking. 71 hours and 58 minutes. You're running out of time, and your firepower is still way too weak. You have the mech wolf and the spider swarms sweep the battlefield first. Tearing down armor, hauling metal, grabbing weapons, and draining power cells. But even after all that, the metal and energy reserves on your system panel still aren't enough to make a real dent in an inner-city tycoon. So you don't waste another second. You vault straight onto the mech wolf's back, and lead your swarm of over 200 mech spiders, carving a path straight toward the abandoned mine on your map. 100 kilometers out, the abandoned mine looks like a massive industrial graveyard left behind by the world. A massive open pit crater, collapsed factories, rusted conveyor belts, and scrapped mining carts. Nothing but cold, hard metal and heavy scrap as far as the eye can see. But strangely, it isn't quiet here at all. The moment you step into the zone, a beast the size of a rhino, a level 2 cave terror lizard covered in bone spikes, lunges out from the rubble. But as fast as it leaps, it dies even faster. Your mech wolf doesn't even bother using its claws. It just whips its head around as they cross paths, slamming its metal skull into the lizard's flank like a battering ram. The sickening crunch of bone echoes out. The massive lizard goes flying over a dozen meters, smashing through a brick wall before crashing heavily into the dirt. Stone dead, an absolute one shot. Right after that, the last few level 2 mutants in the mine are swiftly wiped out. Just like that, this ruined industrial wasteland becomes your brand new base of operations. You immediately order Jarvis to scan the entire sector, hunting for the highest density metal signatures. And in seconds, the results are in. 120 meters below the main pit, there's a massive metallic target. So, over 200 mechanical spiders instantly transformed into engineer units. They frantically dug down along the pit walls. Dirt, gravel, and waste ore went flying everywhere. Half an hour later, a section of tank tread, thicker than a grown man's waist, finally poked out from the bottom of the pit. Keep digging. Another half hour passed, and a true behemoth was finally fully exposed right in front of you. It was a colossal mining excavator, a relic left over from the old era. It was over 20 meters long, with treads taller than a person. Its body was covered in heavy armor. The massive boom and bucket looked like the folded bone claws of an ancient beast. Even covered in rust, it still gave off a raw, violent sense of industrial dread. You could tell with just one glance. Once this thing got awakened, it would absolutely become a true fortress of war. So, you immediately jumped down the pit and pressed your hand flat against the steel plating. Jarvis, use this excavator as the core. Initiate biomechanical fusion. But the very next second, the system hit you with a harsh reality check. Target mass and volume severely exceed limits. Energy required for awakening is 37 times the current reserve. Fusion progress, 0.01%. Stalled. Energy, not enough. And not just by a little bit either. You stood in front of that dormant steel beast, staying silent for a few seconds. Then, you made a quick decision. Since hunting scattered prey wouldn't cut it, it was time to pull off something huge. So, you had Jarvis scan for the strongest biological energy signatures within 10 kilometers of the mine. Soon, a giant canyon on the north side of the map flashed red. The warning level was instantly maxed out. Tier 3 mutant creature nest. Corrosive stinger bees. Danger level, tens of thousands of mutated venomous bees. And at least one Tier 3 queen. You stared at that area on the map, your eyes turning colder by the second. Danger? Perfect. High risk means high reward. So, while using the scrap metal lying around the mine to pump out more units, you casually gave your mechanical spider swarm a quick upgrade. The originally basic suicide bombers were jam-packed with much more complex firepower modules. And the mechanical warwolf? You armed it to the teeth with heavy machine guns and armor plates ripped straight off the Black Dragon Gang. By the time the horizon finally started turning pale white, the mechanical army at your feet had swollen up again. 350 spiders, plus one mechanical warwolf armed to the teeth. But as you looked at this squad, only one thought came to mind. It wasn't enough, not even close, but time waits for no one. You didn't hesitate for another second. You vaulted onto the wolf's back and charged straight north. 10 minutes later, you reached the canyon, but before you even got close, a nauseating, acidic stench hit you right in the face. The whole canyon was way too dead quiet to be a living creature's nest. It felt more like a giant grave. You raised a hand, signaling the army to stop, and right at that moment, a dense, ear-piercing buzz of thousands of fluttering wings. Suddenly, a deafening roar sweeps up from the depths of the canyon, and you jerk your head up. The sky went pitch black. Those aren't storm clouds at all. They are tens of thousands of washbasin-sized, giant venomous bees, trailing green, toxic stingers, forming a massive black storm. They crash down like a crushing tsunami. The very next second, countless sickly green stingers rip through the air, striking first. It's like an overwhelming storm of acid rain. Just a single drop of this venom melts the solid rock beneath you, sizzling and smoking instantly. Any normal army of flesh and blood facing this nightmare would be melted alive on the spot. But fortunately, what you brought with you is absolutely no flesh and blood army. You don't even bother looking up. Through the hive mind connection, you simply issue a command: anti-air formation. The next second, 350 mechanical spiders instantly lock together, head to tail, forming a tightly layered, steel turtle shell defense on the ground. Immediately after, the heavy back armor of every single spider slides open in perfect unison, revealing not spikes, but highly precise, micro 6-barrel grenade launchers. Fire. Boom 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 boom. In that instant, it sounds like countless mechanical triggers detonating all at once. Within fractions of a second, 350 fire units fiercely blast over 2,000 micro-high explosive grenades straight into the sky. A colossal web of absolute death, forged from blazing fire, tearing shrapnel, and crushing shockwaves. Rips open in midair, boom rumble rumble, the explosion violently lights up the entire sky. Those diving, corrosive stinger bees slam right into an invisible wall of iron, getting vaporized out of the air, wave after wave. Disgusting green sludge and scorched bee corpses rain down like popping popcorn. Just one single volley, and that sun-blocking, black swarm of bees is brutally torn wide open. But you don't give them a single second to regroup. Your mechanical battle wolf lets out a deep, rumbling growl. Carrying you on its back, it charges right through the scattered acid rain. It blasts straight into the canyon, violently smashing through the massive boulders blocking the nest's entrance. You force your way inside, guns blazing. And let me tell you, the inside of this nest is even more disgusting than the outside. It reeks of rotten flesh and sickeningly sour acid. Disgusting, semi-transparent eggs and squirming larvae pack the entire underground cavern, making it look like a massive, rotting womb. Yet somehow, as you look at all of this, disgust isn't what comes to your mind. Instead, you just see crystal cores. So, you just utter 4 cold words. Leave not one alive. Right on cue, 50 specially marked mechanical spiders instantly charge right into the thickest part of the swarm, and violently self-destruct. Boom, boom boom boom. The entire underground nest is instantly swallowed by a raging sea of fire. The eggs, the maggots, the worker bees, are all vaporized into gray smoke by the blistering heat of the blast. Massive stalactites and shattered rocks crash down heavily from the cavern roof. However, an explosion of this magnitude has finally awakened the true overlord lurking in the deepest, darkest depths of the nest. Screech, along with a horrifying, brain-piercing screech, a monstrous queen bee, easily the size of a massive dump truck, violently shatters the rock wall and bursts out. Her bloated abdomen glows a highly toxic, sickening dark green. Her 2 pairs of transparent wings vibrate at a frantic, blinding speed. Nasty, corrosive slime constantly drips from her razor-sharp mandibles. Just her terrifying aura alone is far deadlier than any monster you've faced so far. A level 3 queen bee. And worse, she is a completely, uncontrollably enraged level 3 queen bee. She locks her murderous eyes right on you. Without a second of hesitation, she blurs into a deadly green streak, lunging straight for the kill. But you still held your ground. In that exact moment, the mechanical war wolf launched itself, striking first. Leaping high into the air, its jaws clamped down hard on one of the queen's buzzing wings. It viciously ripped the entire wing right off, tearing through flesh and blood. The queen let out a blood-curdling screech. Her massive body crashed heavily into the dirt, and right as she tumbled, You already had your gun raised, aiming dead at her gigantic compound eyes, and ruthlessly emptied a whole magazine into them. Armor-piercing rounds blew right through her eyeball, sending green fluid splattering everywhere. The agonizing pain and sudden blindness drove the queen absolutely insane. She recklessly beat her one remaining wing, launching herself at you for one last, desperate suicide strike. But, you just calmly raised your mechanical right leg, and delivered a devastating kick right into her skull. Bam! That feeling was exactly like a sledgehammer crushing a rotten fruit. The queen's head took a catastrophic hit. Green fluid sprayed all over the ground. Her massive body staggered forward 2 more steps, before finally collapsing into the dirt. The battle was over. You walked over, expertly slicing open what was left of her shattered head. You dug out a fist-sized, brilliant emerald green, Tier 3 crystal core, pulsing with what looked like inner lightning. System voice. Tier 3, high-purity biological crystal core detected. Convertible energy, 12,000 units. Combine that with the Tier 1 and Tier 2 cores scattered all over the ground out there. It was more than enough. Half an hour later, with your energy reserves practically off the charts, you headed back down to the bottom of the abandoned mine's main pit. Standing in front of that colossal excavator, this time, you pressed your hand against it once more. System voice. Energy level sufficient. Detected. Old world heavy engineering chassis. Match confirmed for War Fortress. Modification protocol. Ultimate restructuring. Initiated. In the very next second, a blinding blue light shot straight into the sky. This wasn't some basic upgrade. It was a complete annihilation and rebirth. The tracks were violently stripped away. The armor plating was ripped apart. The boom and bucket blasted into a million individual pieces right in midair. It was like a giant, invisible hand had crushed the entire excavator into a raging storm of steel. Countless metal parts melted down into streams of glowing data, stretching, compressing, and piecing themselves back together in ways that defied logic. About 15 seconds later, the storm instantly vanished. Standing right there was no longer that rusted mining excavator. In its place, towered a 10-meter-tall humanoid war mecha, coated completely in matte black armor. It had 0 useless decorations, just the purest, most brutal, violent contours. Its left arm was fused perfectly with a high-frequency, oscillating chainsaw blade. Its right arm, a massive, double-barreled heavy cannon. And mounted on both shoulders were twin honeycomb micro-missile pods. System voice. War Fortress, Level 1. Codename. Berserker. Is now online. You didn't hesitate for a single second, vaulting straight into the cockpit opening up in its chest. The absolute second the hatch sealed shut, countless neural link probes jacked right into the back of your neck. Neural synchronization initiated, 100%. Synchronization complete. Welcome, Berserker. Unit online. Welcome aboard, Commander. At that exact moment, it felt like you weren't just sitting in a cockpit anymore, but like your whole body had melded right into this giant of steel. The mech's sensors became your own eyes and ears. The rumbling of the earth, the flow of the wind, the silhouette of the ruins in the distance. Everything became clearer than ever before. And so, only 2 words echoed in your mind. Boot up, boom, on the mech's massive metal skull. A single crimson eye suddenly flared to life. You tried taking a single step. Thud, the very second that massive foot hit the ground. The whole earth shook violently. The solid bedrock cracked open, spreading out like a giant spiderweb. Just walking around was already dealing the kind of damage you'd expect from heavy artillery. Then, you raised its left arm. The chainsword roared to life. That deafening buzz instantly echoed across the entire quarry. With a casual swipe, you swung it right at a rocky peak about 40 feet high. And the next second, the entire top half of that peak slowly slid right off, leaving a perfectly smooth cut. It slammed into the ground with a massive crash. The cut was as smooth as glass. Right after that, you aimed the twin-linked cannons on the right arm at an abandoned main building over half a mile away. Fire. Bang. 2 armor-piercing high-explosive rounds ripped right through the sky. A second later, the whole building looked like it got punched by a giant fist. It blew apart from the inside out. Rebar, concrete, and fire shot straight up into the air. In the blink of an eye, nothing was left but a blazing pile of rubble. Inside the cockpit, you watched that building get completely wiped off the map with just 2 shots. And that lingering, deep-seated fear of never having enough firepower finally felt completely cured for the very first time. You reached out and gently ran your hand over the cold joystick. You muttered, "Now this is how you knock on a door." But of course, the system's cold countdown was still there, reminding you just how tight the deadline was. Time until the real knock, 47 hours and 32 minutes remaining. You knew perfectly well, the Rampager was your ultimate ace for breaking enemy lines. But just having an ace wasn't going to cut it. You still needed more cannon fodder, more firepower, more mechanical units to completely flood the front lines. And so, your eyes quickly locked onto those abandoned conveyor belts stretching for miles across the quarry. And the assembly lines, a brand new plan for mass production, was already rapidly taking shape in your head. However, just as you were about to issue the next batch of build orders, beep, a piercing alarm suddenly went off like crazy inside the cockpit, with zero warning. Your pupils shrank, you snapped your head toward the radar screen. Right there on the monitor, the unknown blips that were just yellow a second ago were now closing in on the quarry at high speed from every direction. And once Jarvis finished scanning them, those clusters of blips, in just a matter of seconds, all turned into a blood-red color, signaling maximum hostility. They were everywhere, completely swarming the entire radar. Warning, massive wave of standard military units detected approaching. Total count, about one full-strength reinforced battalion. Identification confirmed, High Wall Garrison Force, 7th Mobile Regiment, right after you finished testing the Berserkers' firepower, and were getting ready to pump out more units. The alarm inside the cockpit suddenly went absolutely crazy. On the holographic radar, a massive swarm of red dots was closing in from all sides, like a giant, blood-red net slowly pulling tight. With only one target, you, right in the center of the mine. Warning, large-scale standard armed units detected. Quantity, 1,124. Identification confirmed, High Wall Garrison Force, 7th Mobile Regiment. Estimated time to contact, 11 hours, 45 minutes, and 12 seconds. A fully manned mobile regiment, plus tanks, armored vehicles, and self-propelled artillery. Out here in the wasteland, a force that size is enough to wipe a small city right off the map. But as you stared at that sea of red dots, you didn't panic at all. Instead, you just coldly muttered, 11 hours, huh? That's plenty of time. In the next split second, you jumped straight out of the Berserker's cockpit. You hit the ground and didn't even look back. You just walked straight into the deepest part of the mine, heading right for that rusted, scrapped ore refinery. You knew damn well, a crisis is never a bad thing. For anyone else, this was a death sentence. But for you, it was the ultimate production schedule. Bang, you kicked open the rusted alloy doors and stepped into an old-world factory that had been dead for years. Giant stamping presses, smelting furnaces, conveyor belts, and robotic arms were all covered in thick dust, like rotting corpses left behind by an industrial age. But in your eyes, these weren't piles of trash. They were the skeleton of a weapons factory. You walked right up to the central control console and slammed your right hand down without a second thought. Jarvis, initiate subroutine splice. I'm taking over everything in here. A split second later, a surge of blue data streams rushed frantically from the console into the entire factory. Machines that had been dead for decades suddenly flared to life, as if injected with a soul. 3 abandoned assembly lines lit up all at once. The old conveyor belts were reinforced. The stamping presses swapped molds at lightning speed, and the massive smelting furnace roared back to life, blasting out flames as the temperature skyrocketed to the max in the blink of an eye. System alert. 3 modifiable assembly lines detected. Energy cost, 5,000. Automated weapons factory modification protocol initiated. Right after that, you use the Hive Mind Link to issue a command to every single mechanical unit. Strip down every single piece of scrap metal in this mine, and throw it all into smelting furnace number 1. As soon as the order dropped, the entire mining zone came alive. Over 300 mechanical spiders and battle wolves scattered in an instant, forming the ultimate, hyper-efficient demolition squad. Mine carts, steel beams, conveyor frames, abandoned pipes, even the skeletal frames of half-collapsed buildings, they tore it all apart with brutal force. They hauled it away in massive batches and chucked it straight into the roaring furnace, sending flames shooting high into the sky. Molten iron surge. Right after that, a true industrial slaughter began. Crimson molten iron poured into the molds, smashed by the stamping presses, bang, 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 forming spider shells. Robotic arms welded at lightning speed along the conveyor belt, assembling them and implanting their cores. At the end of the assembly line, the moment each brand new mechanical spider hit the ground, its 6 crimson electronic eyes lit up all at once. Then, they nimbly leapt down, merging into the ever-growing tide of steel bugs below. The unit count began to skyrocket wildly. 352, 500, 1,200, in just 3 short hours. You were no longer just building an army. You were printing one, but you still thought it was too slow. So, you immediately fired up a second, much more complex assembly line, shifting your focus to standard battle wolf components. The new mechanical wolves were being assembled in mass batches. External armor, compact Vulcan cannons, and reinforced hydraulics were added one by one. The already ferocious mechanical wolf pack truly began evolving into heavy assault beasts. By the time dawn approached, the inside and outside of the mine had completely transformed. In the center of the mine, it was no longer an empty industrial ruin. Instead, over 3,000 cold mechanical units stood ready. Among them, 300 reinforced, newly designed mechanical wolves stood like the royal guard, tightly surrounding the rampager. As for the 5-kilometer radius around the mine's perimeter, you had already buried it thick with mechanical spiders. In anyone else's eyes, that was just a wasteland. But in your eyes, it was an absolute death trap. A massive minefield. At that moment, you finally felt a long-lost trace of security. 10 hours later, as the sky began to brighten, the 7th Mobile Regiment finally arrived. Hundreds of combat vehicles rolled in, kicking up clouds of dust from the edge of the horizon. Tanks, armored transports, and self-propelled artillery spread out into a massive battle line. The torrent of steel was terrifyingly aggressive, looking as if it wanted to crush the entire mine to dust. And inside the command vehicle, the 7th Mobile Regiment's Supreme Commander, Major Raymond, held up his binoculars. His face was full of that typical arrogance only high-wall officers had. The way he saw it, you were nothing but a lowlife hiding in a restricted junkyard. Taking out the Black Dragon Gang yesterday? That was just dumb luck. Today, facing a real, regular army, you wouldn't even get the chance to struggle. So, with just a single glance at the mine, he sneered and barked his orders. All artillery units, 3 rounds of indiscriminate blanket fire. I want this entire mining sector completely wiped off the map, along with whatever trace that piece of trash, Shen Bei, leaves behind. The next second, 20 main battle tanks and 20, 155mm self-propelled howitzers raised their barrels in perfect sync. Boom, 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 boom. The earth instantly screamed in agony as tons of steel and raging fire were hurled into the sky, turning into countless streaks of brilliant orange light crashing down upon the mine. The first round of bombardment lasted a solid 10 minutes. The glow of the explosions dyed half the sky blood red, as mushroom clouds blasted into the heavens. It was as if a whole layer of the mountain had been violently scraped away. Inside the command vehicle, Raymond had even picked up his coffee. In his eyes, under this level of firepower coverage, let alone a person, there shouldn't even be a single piece of rubble left. But as the smoke cleared, the sight left the entire 7th Mobile Regiment in dead silence. The refinery building at the heart of the mine was completely untouched. A massive, pale blue energy shield, like an inverted dome of the sky, firmly enveloped the entire factory zone. That mountain-leveling bombardment from just moments ago had struck the shield and only stirred up a few pathetic, tiny ripples. Raymond's face instantly dropped. An energy shield? A strategic-level defense system like this was only supposed to exist around the most exclusive megacorp buildings in the inner city. How the hell was it out here in some restricted mining dump? But before he could even process it, your mocking voice blasted through the factory's loudspeakers. You Liu family lapdogs, is that all you've got? That wasn't even a warm-up. You didn't even manage to scratch my back. Those words hit the entire 7th Mobile Regiment like a vicious slap in the face. Raymond exploded with rage, slashing his command sword forward. He screamed until his voice cracked. Tank company. Full speed charge. Crush that damn turtle shell. Crush him. The moment the words left his mouth, 20 main battle tanks roared as they surged forward, with over 1,000 infantrymen following close behind. The entire mobile regiment charged straight at the front of the mine like a massive spear of solid steel. But they hadn't even covered 500 meters before disaster struck the lead tank. Its treads rolled over a totally ordinary-looking, rusted steel plate. And then, 3 mechanical spiders burst from the dirt, instantly latching onto the gap between the chassis and the treads. Before the driver inside could even blink, the explosion ripped through. Boom! That 60-ton main battle tank was brutally blasted straight into the air. Its chassis was blown wide open, and its treads, along with the road wheels, were completely shredded into scrap. And yet, this was only the beginning. The very next second, thousands of glowing red lights flashed on all at once across the entire path of the charge. From under the dirt, beneath the scrap metal, hidden in the gravel pits, and lurking at the edges of the blast craters, countless mechanical spiders surfaced simultaneously, swarming like a plague of steel scorpions crawling straight out of hell. They threw themselves at the tanks, the armored vehicles, and the troops. Boom, 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 boom. A massive wave of explosions instantly linked together. Before the wave of steel could even reach the shield, its spine was utterly shattered by the hidden minefield. Tanks were flipped, armored transports were blown apart, and the infantry were sent flying through a sea of fire and shockwaves. The entire front line was blasted to hell in a single breath. Inside the command vehicle, cold chill ran down Raymond's spine as he stared at the monitors. But the real nightmare hadn't even begun yet. Just as the mobile regiment's formation was blown to absolute pieces, that silent war factory in the middle of the mine finally began to slowly open its massive alloy doors. Thump! A heavy footstep echoed out from the darkness. Thump! And another. Then, a 10-meter-tall pitch-black humanoid mecha stepped out from deep within the factory. Its dark armor, a chainsaw sword on its left arm, and twin cannons on its right. Its glowing red eyes swept coldly across the battlefield, looking like a true steel demon straight out of the wasteland. This was Unit Berserker, and just its sheer presence almost suffocated everyone in the 7th Mobile Regiment. The tank crews froze, the infantry froze, and even Raymond was left utterly speechless. But their military instincts kicked in, forcing them to open fire. The remaining dozen tanks turned their turrets all at once, aiming all their barrels right at Unit Berserker. Over a dozen heavy armor-piercing rounds roared through the air, slamming into its chest and shoulder plates. Massive explosions swallowed its giant frame, but as the smoke cleared, Unit Berserker was still standing right there. Its armor only had a few faint white scratches. Not even a dent. Inside the cockpit, you stared at the flashing system alert for armor damage, reading a mere 0.1%. A smirk slowly crept across your face. Warm-up's over. In the next second, Unit Berserker's back thrusters blasted a ghostly blue flame. The 100-ton steel giant turned into an absolute blur, moving at an impossible speed. It smashed right into the tank formation. The first Tiger tank barely tried to back up, when the chainsaw sword came crashing down from above, tearing through without any resistance. The tank's turret and half its body were sliced clean in two, the massive cut glowing red-hot. Right after that, you brought a heavy foot down. Boom! Another tank right next to you was crushed flat into a twisted metal pancake, tearing tanks apart by hand, crushing armor underfoot. This wasn't even a battle anymore. It was an absolute, brutal demolition job. In just over 10 seconds, whatever was left of their armored forces was brutally smashed to pieces by Unit Berserker. Massive fireballs erupted one after another. The unstoppable flood of steel that the mega corporations thought was their ultimate trump card was torn apart like wet paper in front of this mecha, and you still weren't satisfied. So, you slammed your hand down on the red button on the center console. All units, attack. In a flash, every single blast door of the factory burst open. Over 2,000 mechanical spiders and 300 next-gen cyber wolves armed with Vulcan rotary cannons poured out like a dark flood. They roared out of the mine, pouncing right onto the terrified infantry who were already breaking and running. Screams for mercy immediately drowned out the wasteland. The cyber wolves ruthlessly hunted down the fleeing soldiers, while the spider drones swarmed into their ranks, scurrying under armored transports and into the treads of self-propelled artillery, before blowing themselves to hell in massive explosions. In an instant, the battlefield turned into an absolute nightmare. Raymond was finally panicking. He screamed at his driver, desperately trying to spin his command vehicle around to run for his life. But right at that exact moment, Unit Berserker's shoulder missile pods slowly locked into place. Dozens of glowing red targeting squares locked straight onto his command vehicle. Staring death right in the face, Raymond finally played his very last card. Boom! A terrifying aura suddenly erupted from his body, instantly shredding his uniform. Dark red runes crawled across his skin, as his muscles and bones expanded wildly. His skin rapidly petrified, forming a thick suit of armor that looked like volcanic rock. A Tier 4 Awakener, and a petrification type at that. Seeing this, the surviving soldiers felt a sudden, desperate surge of hope. To them, a Tier 4 Awakener was practically a legend on the battlefield. Tanking artillery shells with his bare flesh wasn't even a stretch. If Ramon could just smash you inside your cockpit, they might actually turn this fight around. And so, Ramon let out a thunderous roar to the heavens and launched himself into the air. In midair, he forcibly materialized a massive, 3-meter dark red energy blade, aiming straight for the Berserker's cockpit, cut off the head of the snake. The strategy itself wasn't wrong. But unfortunately for him, he wasn't facing some old-school mecha that still relied on swords. Inside the cockpit, you looked at the target marked by the system as Tier 4 Lifeform, Petrification Type. Staring at that red dot, your eyes actually filled with a hint of pity. Still fighting like such a caveman. The very next second, you slightly raised your hand. The Berserker's right arm, which looked like a twin-linked cannon, instantly shifted, its internal rotary system spinning up wildly. The barrels glowed a scorching red. That was no ordinary heavy cannon. It was a twin-linked, 30mm, 6-barrel Vulcan cannon. You softly whispered, "Times have changed." Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. That wasn't just gunfire. It was the roar of a steel hurricane. 2 blinding orange whips of fire, made up of countless armor-piercing incendiary tracers, instantly ripped through the sky, slamming brutally into Ramon in midair. The first round shattered his energy shield. The 10th round pierced straight through his rock armor. The 100th round completely pulverized his entire defense. After that, there was no point in counting anymore. In less than 3 seconds, that arrogant Tier 4 Awakener, who was acting like a descending god just moments ago, was completely shredded and obliterated by the relentless firepower, right there in midair. No screams, no desperate counterattacks, just dark red energy residue mixed with chunks of armor, raining back down to the earth. The wind stopped, the battlefield fell dead silent. The surviving soldiers stared blankly at the sky. It wasn't until someone's rifle hit the ground with a clatter that the rest of them seemed to lose their spines all at once. They collapsed to their knees, one after another. "We surrender. We surrender. Please, don't kill me. I'm begging you. We were wrong. We'll never do it again." Their terrified pleas echoed across the field. But looking down at them, you only said one thing. When the avalanche comes, not a single snowflake is innocent, and with that, you gave the order to your entire army, leave no survivors. And so, the final execution began. By the time the first rays of dawn finally broke, the 7th Mobile Regiment simply ceased to exist. The outer perimeter of the mine was nothing but scorched earth, shattered armor and scattered equipment wreckage everywhere. The Berserker unit stood right in the middle of the battlefield, slowly bending down, using its massive mechanical hand to carve a few giant, glaring words into the dirt. Countdown. One day, right after that, you had Jarvis forcefully hack into the 7th Mobile Regiment's comm link, broadcasting this live feed directly over the A-level clearance channels of the High Wall's intranet. Inside the High Wall, the Liu family's council chamber. The Liu family elites were sipping red wine, waiting for reports of victory from the front lines. Liu Tianshang was even comforting Liu Zi, saying that once Raymond brings your head back, they would hang it right by his bed, so he could look at it every day and vent his anger. But in the very next second, the entire holographic screen was forcibly hijacked. The smoke-filled mine, the twisted, scrapped tanks and armored vehicles, the scattered remains of the defending troops, and that massive 10-meter mech standing right in the center of the battlefield, instantly filled the entire chamber. Finally, the camera zoomed in and froze on those carved words, countdown. One day, the wine glass in Liu Tianshang's hand shattered against the floor. As for Liu Zi, his face went completely pale. His eyes rolled back, and his pants were instantly soaked. He had wet himself from fear, yet again. Back at the mine, you completely ignored the panic happening inside the High Wall. Because you knew, intimidation was just the appetizer. The real knock on the door was yet to come. So, you immediately pushed all assembly lines into maximum overdrive, and coldly gave the order, "Tomorrow, at sunrise, we march on the High Wall." Right at that moment, A new prompt finally popped up in the system. Mechanical units and energy reserves had simultaneously crossed the strategic threshold. Jarvis, who was originally just a support module, completely finished his upgrade. Ultimate Tactical AI Commander. Jarvis, officially activated. From this moment on, I will map out every step of your path to the Divine Throne. This time, his voice was no longer just cold and mechanical. It was something much more advanced, far more rational, carrying an almost god-like indifference. But the most crucial part was, all of your computational strain was completely taken over by him. Before, even though you could control the entire legion, once the unit count grew too high, your mental exhaustion would skyrocket exponentially. But things were different now. Jarvis had become your true brain of war. You only needed to provide the strategic direction, and he would handle all the remaining tactical deployments for you. And so, after a full night of explosive, overloaded unit production, you finally halted all assembly lines right before dawn, and began to review your troops. The roaring machinery of the factory abruptly stopped. The very next second, a massive swarm of mechanical units gathered from all directions, just like a true sea of black. Over 5,000 mechanical spiders surged out first, densely packing the entire clearing. Their glowing red electronic eyes looked up all at once. Just a single glance was enough to make anyone's blood run cold. Right after them, over 800 heavy armored battle wolves marched out in formation. Equipped with external armor plating and shoulder-mounted Vulcan cannons, it looked like a legion of fully mechanized heavy cavalry, but that wasn't all. Deep inside the factory, 10 massive 15-meter-tall gates made of special alloy suddenly rose open all at once. In the darkness, 10 pairs of glowing crimson eyes pierced through the shadows, one after another. Boom, 10 massive units, completely on par with the Berserker class, 10-meter-tall heavy assault mechs, marched out of the gates in perfect unison, forming a single imposing line. They looked like 10 gods of steel descending to judge the world. It was only at this moment that your deep-rooted, almost paranoid fear of not having enough firepower was finally mostly cured. Jarvis's voice then echoed with a status report. Self-destruct spiders, 5,214. Heavy assault wolves, 832. Standard berserker mechs, 10. Total strategic units, 6,056. You listened and coldly uttered just one word. Move out. In an instant, over 6,000 mechanical units and nearly 40,000 glowing crimson electronic eyes flared to life all at once. Over 5,000 spiders surged forward first, forming a black tide that rushed toward the high wall. Over 800 heavy assault wolves followed right behind them, their heavy paw steps shaking the earth like pounding war drums. Bringing up the rear, the 10 berserker mechs slowly advanced. Every massive step felt like a moving mountain. It was like an unstoppable storm bearing down on the city. No, even the darkest storm clouds couldn't compare to this. Meanwhile, on the western side of the high wall, dawn was just breaking. At first, the garrison guards only felt a faint tremor running through the walls. They thought it was just a minor earthquake, but the shaking rapidly grew more and more violent. Soon, the entire 100-meter-tall wall began to groan with an overwhelmed creak. When the commanding officer grabbed his binoculars and looked out into the distance, he was completely paralyzed with shock. The first thing that hit his eyes was a thick black line at the very edge of the horizon. But it wasn't just a line at all, it was a terrifying, rapidly expanding tide of metal. Behind that, massive packs of mechanical beasts made of cold steel. And looming in the very back, 10 towering black giants reaching for the sky. Bathed in the early morning light, they were marching toward the high wall as casually as if taking a stroll in the park. The binoculars slipped right out of the officer's trembling hands. A demon. That demon. Shen Bei. He's here. The highest level security alarms blared instantly. Inside the towering walls, everyone from the defending troops, to the commoners, all the way up to the elite, was jolted awake from their sleep by the sheer, ear-piercing wail of the sirens. Meanwhile, your army came to a dead halt exactly 3 kilometers away from the high wall. The 10 berserker mechs lined up in a single, unyielding row. They stood like 10 mountains of steel. A massive loudspeaker on the chest of the center mech crackled to life. And your voice echoed, loud and crystal clear, across the entire city. Lu Zi, I've come knocking. The moment those words dropped, up on the high wall, the very last shred of Lu Tianshang's fake composure was utterly ripped apart. With bloodshot eyes, he spun around and roared at his men, activate. the divine retribution system, wipe that little scum off the map, along with his piles of scrap metal, blow it all into cosmic dust. The next instant, the entire 100-meter wall began to let out an earth-shattering roar. The heavy armor plating along the top cracked open, layer by layer, slowly revealing the ultimate arsenal that formed the true core of the Megacorp's rule. 360 twin-barreled heavy defense cannons, 120 rapid-fire Vulcan turrets, and right at the center of the wall's defensive axis, the most terrifying strategic-level electromagnetic railgun. But this was no ordinary cannon. It was a pair of 100-meter-long silver rails, and suspended right between them, a conical metal shell, crackling with a ghostly blue electric glow, hung in a massive magnetic field. It looked like a spear of judgment, ready to pierce the very heavens. This was the absolute power that let the High Wall Megacorp sleep soundly for 100 years. This was divine retribution. Meanwhile, inside the command center, the moment Lu Zi saw the ultimate system fully deployed, that sick, twisted high came rushing back. He snatched the microphone, screaming like a maniac at you down below. Shen Bei, you little bug crawling out of the trash. Do you see this? This is the true power of the Megacorps. This is the order of civilization. So what if you're strong on your own? So what if you brought all these little toys? You really think you can breach a 100-meter wall? Today, you and all this scrap metal are going to be nothing but dust in the wind. Yet, you couldn't even be bothered to look up. You just quietly watched the massive swarm of incoming fire warnings flooding your holographic screen. Warning: massive high-energy strike detected. Strategic level electromagnetic weapon signature detected. Calculating evasion routes. Cancel that. You simply replied with 2 calm words. The very second those words left your lips, Lu Zi's hysterical roar was instantly swallowed by an earth-shattering boom. Fire. Boom, boom, boom. The entire wall, the entire sky. It felt like the heavens were collapsing right then and there. A second later, the true divine retribution rained down. 360 heavy cannons roared in unison. Thousands of large-caliber high-explosive shells, trailing glowing orange exhaust, crashed down like a deadly meteor shower, plunging straight toward your massive mech army. Right on its heels, the electromagnetic railgun dead center on the wall erupted simultaneously with a blinding, agonizing flash of white light. Swoosh! There was no roaring blast, just a deafening shriek that ripped the air apart. That conical metal shell was launched with the terrifying kinetic energy of Mach 20. Trailing a massive white shockwave, shooting with pinpoint accuracy straight at the 10 berserker mechs clustered right in the center. That single strike was enough to punch right through any known armor in the world. And yet, you simply issued one calm, cold command. Shields up. The very next instant, over 5,000 mechanical spiders powered up simultaneously. A glowing seam cracked open on the back of every single spider. Slender but intensely concentrated beams of blue light shot straight up into the sky. 5,214 energy beams wove together at breakneck speed, linking up, synchronizing, and in the blink of an eye, they formed a massive, domed energy shield over 2 kilometers wide, locking the entire army safely inside. The bombardment hit, but the apocalyptic explosion they all expected simply never happened. That terrifying storm of firepower, enough to wipe an entire city right off the map, slammed into the shield, and just rippled harmlessly away in beautiful rings of glowing blue energy. No deafening roar, no earth-shattering impact. The moment the explosive energy hit the shield, it was completely absorbed and broken down. Then, it was gently released. It honestly looked like a grand, yet utterly desperate fireworks display. Finally, the orbital cannon shell carrying the last hopes of the high wall struck. Clink, just a single, crisp, almost laughable sound, like glass tapping against glass. That terrifying weapon, powerful enough to pierce the Earth's crust, didn't even trigger a single decent ripple on the shield's surface. The force field tore it apart at the subatomic level, turning it into nothing but a harmless handful of metallic dust. As the fireworks faded, the battlefield fell into a dead silence. The shield remained as smooth as a mirror, completely unscathed. Up on the high wall, every single person just froze. Lu Zi was still frozen mid-roar, his eyes practically bulging right out of his skull. The defense officer who ordered the strike stood there like a crumbling stone statue. Even Lu Tianshang couldn't muster another scream. All that was left was a deep, soul-crushing trembling. Because in that exact moment, They finally understood. This wasn't a war. This was their enemy standing perfectly still, letting them burn through every single trump card. Just so the execution could officially begin. Inside the cockpit, you slowly lit a cigarette, and took a long, deep drag. You let the thick smoke fill the cramped space. And then, you looked at the screens, at those faces completely drained of hope, and casually asked, "Are you done?" Then, you held the cigarette between your fingers, your voice terrifyingly calm. "Jarvis, it's our turn, let them hear what our cannons sound like." The very next second, 10 units of the Berserker mechs raised their right arms in perfect unison. Their shoulder-mounted honeycomb missile pods clicked open. The targeting locks for 1,200 micro-missiles instantly locked onto every single turret and firing point on the high wall. You gently crushed out your cigarette, and coldly spat out a single word. Fire. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 1,200 missiles tore through the sky, trailing crimson exhaust like a swarm of bloodthirsty, metallic hornets. They crossed 3 kilometers in a flash, swarming straight for the top of the wall with deadly precision. A second later, the entire city defense line just exploded. Boom, 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 boom. It wasn't just a barrage, it was a violent metal storm that ignited simultaneously across dozens of kilometers of the wall. Heavy artillery was blown to pieces. Vulcan turrets and their heavy foundations were instantly melted into scrap. Ammo depots went off in a massive chain reaction, turning the top of the wall into an absolute burning wasteland. As for the soldiers, the artillerymen, and the low-level awakeners still stationed near the guns, they were instantly vaporized in the shockwave and thousands of degrees of heat. 10 seconds later, as the smoke began to clear, not a single intact turret was left standing on the high wall. The Heaven's Wrath system was completely paralyzed. The few survivors collapsed right there on the wall, staring down at those 10 unscathed, demonic black mechs. They didn't even have the strength to run away anymore. But Liu Tianshang still refused to accept reality. Like a total madman, he lunged for the control console of the central electromagnetic railgun, grabbed the operator by the collar, and screamed at the top of his lungs. "Force the charge, I want maximum power, now, aim for that central mainframe." Blasted into atoms, the operator was on the verge of tears, stammering that the cooldown wasn't finished yet. A forced launch would overload the rail, but Liu Tianshang wasn't listening at all. His eyes bloodshot, he just kept screaming one word: fire. And so, that railgun, which should have been cooling down, was forcefully awakened once more. Ghostly blue arcs of electricity gathered wildly along its 100-meter track. The surrounding air sizzled with ionization. That apocalyptic lock-on zeroed in right on the central Rager unit, but you didn't panic at all, because your tactical countermeasure was already in place. Just a split second before the railgun finished charging, those 800 heavy armored war wolves in the rear suddenly made their move. They didn't charge straight ahead, instead, they instantly scattered, sprinting toward the wall's flanks in chaotic zigzag patterns. At the same time, their shoulder-mounted Vulcan cannons laid down heavy suppressive fire on the defense zone, deliberately causing absolute chaos. In that exact moment, everyone's line of sight was completely thrown off. The operator instinctively glanced toward the flank. His hand, adjusting the aim, hesitated for a fraction of a second. And it was that tiny, microscopic hesitation that sent everything completely off the rails. Fire. Ka-boom. A blinding pale blue beam tore through the sky, blasting outward at speeds far beyond human vision. But unfortunately for them, it missed. It didn't hit the central mainframe at all. Instead, it grazed the target and blasted right into the galloping pack of war wolves. It carved out a terrifying trench, thousands of meters long and bottomless. Over a dozen mechanical war wolves, and every obstacle in its path, were instantly vaporized by that beam. Not even ash remained. The raw power was still absolutely horrifying. But the simple fact was, it missed the real target. And that was the high wall's very last trump card. Of course, you weren't going to let this moment slip away. The massive recoil from the railgun and the shockwave from the blast had the entire wall trembling. And your legion seized that razor-thin opening, surging forward like a collapsing dam of black steel. 5,000 mechanical spiders and 10 heavy mechs instantly slammed against the base of the wall. Those 10 mechs ground to a halt side by side, looking like 10 massive black mountains. Their giant singular eyes looked up in unison, staring down that 100-meter wall. Up on the battlements, someone was still desperately trying to hype themselves up, shouting that the wall was too high. Saying the enemy didn't have any flying units, so they'd never make it up. Lu Tianshang clutched at that desperate hope like a lifeline, roaring at everyone to grab their guns. Their grenades, demanding they hold the line until the Heaven's Punishment Cannon finished cooling down. But you merely gave a cold, calm order. Spider swarm, scale the wall. In the very next second, tiny electromagnetic grips snapped open on the tips of every single mechanical spider's legs. And then, skitter, 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 over 5,000 mechanical spiders, completely defying gravity, crawling right up the smooth, almost completely vertical face of the wall, swarming upwards in a dense, maddening frenzy. That wasn't just climbing, it was a black tidal wave surging up into the sky. Countless scarlet electronic eyes merged into a terrifying, hopeless sea of crimson stars. Spreading wildly across the pale gray concrete, it looked like hell itself was spilling right over their defenses. The very first person to make contact was a peak Tier 2 awakened on the battlements. He brought his blade crashing down onto the first mechanical spider to breach the edge, a vicious blade of wind coating his weapon. He was clearly trying to shatter its joint connections, but chillingly, that spider didn't even try to dodge. It just raised its single, crimson eye, the glow maxing out in a flash. The very next second, boom, a blinding fireball erupted right in the Awaken's face. And this wasn't just some ordinary explosion. It was a directional blast, packed with high-yield explosives and flesh-shredding steel needles. That Tier 2 Awakened, along with their energy shield, was wiped from existence on the spot. Soldiers nearby were instantly torn to shreds by the flying shrapnel. The wall's defenders finally realized one absolutely terrifying truth. These spiders, they weren't foot soldiers at all. They were the bombs, and not just any bombs. They were bombs that could climb walls. Bombs that hunted people down. Bombs that deliberately hurled themselves right into the thickest crowds. And so, the real slaughter began. Number 2. Number 100. More and more mechanical spiders swarmed over the wall. Their goal was never to engage in close-quarters combat. They simply rushed wherever the crowds were thickest. They pounced right onto the heaviest pockets of firepower. Wherever they saw organized resistance, they charged straight in. And then, detonation. Boom, 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 boom. The entire high wall was swallowed in a massive, continuous chain of explosions. The machine gun nests? Blown to bits. The makeshift bunkers? Obliterated. The gathering squads of Awakened? Wiped out. The supply caches? Gone in flames. Even the medevac lines went up in smoke. This so-called defense line, against an enemy like this, one that didn't care about tactics, didn't care about casualty ratios. A steel swarm of insects that only cared about efficiency and taking you down with them, they folded like wet paper. The top of the wall was instantly transformed into a meat grinder of roaring flames. Meanwhile, another specialized detachment of mechanical spiders completely ignored the regular soldiers from start to finish. They had only one target in sight: Sky Smite, the system's last surviving orbital cannon and its control hub. Hundreds of spiders scuttled up the cannon's barrel, swarming madly up the base and control lines. They flooded into the still smoking control room like strikes of black lightning. The operators stared in horror as the glass was covered in a dense sea of crimson, compound eyes. They barely had time to let out a single, blood-curdling scream. And right after that, boom, a blast more massive than anything before it erupted violently from the center of the wall. That orbital cannon, along with the entire control hub, was blown to absolute scrap from the inside out. Chunks of steel, gears, wreckage, and soaring flames shot straight up into the sky. Sky Smite, the absolute peak of the Syndicate's military dominance, was now nothing but junk. And failing right alongside that catastrophic chain explosion was the complex electronic locking system of the city gates. And so, that massive alloy gate, weighing hundreds of tons, amid the ear-piercing screech of grinding metal, slowly swung open inward. A single ray of sunlight pierced through the growing gap, illuminating the 10 silent, towering black titans waiting outside. Up on the wall, there was no one left standing. And you just watched it all with cold indifference. Move in. At your command, the 10 Ravagers heavily marched through that shattered, century-old gate, crushing scrap iron and wreckage beneath their feet, stepping for the very first time into this walled world that once called itself untouchable. The central avenue lay right ahead, leading straight to the Syndicate's grand estate. Victory. felt like it was already in the palm of your hand. But right at that very moment, a terrifying aura, vastly dwarfing Raymond's. Without warning, a terrifying force erupted from the very depths of the inner city, its presence crashing down like an avalanche. It even brought everything to a dead stop for the very first time. You looked up, and saw an old man, with hair and a beard as white as snow. Standing right there in thin air, crackling serpents of lightning coiled all around him. When he opened his eyes, there wasn't a single shred of human emotion left in them. Only the pure, cold flicker of lightning. The Lu family's true trump card had finally shown himself. Lu Tianshang, looking like a dying man who just found a lifeline, scrambled over to the window, dropping to his knees and bowing frantically to that figure in the sky. He screamed at the top of his lungs, "Patriarch, the Patriarch has finally come out of seclusion." A level 5 lightning awakened. With just this, everyone in the inner city who hadn't given up hope suddenly felt like they were brought back to life. Because a level 5 is a being powerful enough to be called the absolute peak of the wasteland. And the very first thing Lu Qianlei said carried that same, arrogant, dead cold indifference. 100 years away, and the world has fallen to such a pathetic state. A bunch of worthless scrap metal dares to attack my Lu family? Before the echo even faded, he raised a hand to the sky. In a split second, the sky turned pitch black. Heavy storm clouds rolled in, and a massive pool of lightning took shape. Dozens of terrifying lightning strikes crashed down like the spears of angry gods, slamming right into your pack of war wolves. Those heavy-duty war wolves, beasts built to tank heavy artillery and tear apart armored vehicles, were as fragile as paper in the face of this reality-bending lightning storm. Over 100 of them were melted right on the spot, completely vaporized. Just erased from existence. But the worst part was, this lightning energy carried a massive electromagnetic pulse. Inside your cockpit, the alarms instantly went absolutely crazy. Warning, ultra-high-intensity electromagnetic pulse detected. Swarm network stability dropping. Signal lost for multiple remote units. This was the first time you actually frowned. Because a level 5 was stepping right into the exact territory a mechanical army hates dealing with the most. Reality bending, hardcore electromagnetic suppression. And high up in the sky, Lu Qianlei was clearly getting ready to crush you, the mastermind behind it all. He clenched his fist, and a massive 30-foot spear, made entirely of compressed, violently crackling lightning, slowly formed in his hand. Its apocalyptic energy locked straight onto your central mainframe. It was obvious, he planned to end you with a single strike. But at that exact moment, you didn't panic. Instead, you grinned, a twisted, completely manic grin. A level 5, perfect, you'll make the perfect blood sacrifice for my army. In the very next second, you slammed your hand onto the control panel, firing off a rapid string of commands, burning through every single backup energy core, converting all salvaged materials, releasing 10 units of the Berserker class, removing all safety limits, and then, with an absolutely ice-cold voice, you spoke. "Jarvis, initiate the final protocol, Titan fusion," and at that exact same moment, Lu Qianlei hurled his lightning spear down at you. A devastating bolt of pale blue lightning tore straight through the sky. It cleanly pierced the flank of a Berserker mech, right through its chest, but the massive explosion everyone expected didn't happen. Instead, the pierced mech started melting down like a wax figure. Wait, no, not melting. It was disintegrating, breaking down into billions of silver metal particles, turning into a raging flood of liquid metal, rushing madly toward the central mainframe. Right after that, the other 8 Berserkers stopped dead at the exact same time. Their single eyes went dark. And then they dismantled all at once. 8 storms of liquid metal blasted into the sky, clinging and wrapping around from every single direction, multiplying over that central mech, along with an ear-piercing screech of metal reconstructing itself. The originally 10-meter-tall body started shooting up at a terrifying, visible speed. 15 meters, 25 meters, 30 meters. Finally, when all the raging floods of metal completely fused together, a 30-meter-tall, mountain-shouldered, terrifying titan covered head to toe in dark red heavy armor, with 6 ferocious metal wings sprouting from its back. And a giant, crimson single eye embedded in its chest, stood silently on the earth. Just by standing there, it made even the sky feel a little bit lower. And you were sitting in the even wider, throne-like pilot seat, looking up at that Tier 5 lightning cultivator who was acting so high and mighty just a second ago. Through the speakers, a cold, massive, completely inhuman synthetic voice echoed across the entire city. Tier 5, you're telling me you call this scrap metal? In that moment, the whole city went dead silent, and Lu Qianlei finally lost his cool for the very first time. He clearly couldn't handle the sight in front of him, so he quickly forced his terror down and twisted it into blind rage. Roaring, he pushed all his powers to the absolute limit, summoning the weather anomalies once again. The pool of lightning in the sky completely poured down. Hundreds, thousands of lightning dragons twisted together into a massive waterfall of thunder spanning 1,000 meters. Crashing right down onto the Titan's head with the majestic, divine power to purify everything. The Titan didn't even lift a finger. A dark red energy shield, as thin as a cicada's wing, quietly materialized. And then, those lightning strikes were just like tiny streams flowing into the ocean, hitting the shield without even stirring up the tiniest ripple. Before being completely absorbed, devoured, and converted, inside the cockpit, system alerts rang out one after another. High-intensity energy injected, conversion efficiency at 99.8%, energy reserves rising rapidly, reserves have reached maximum capacity, redirecting excess energy to weapon systems. You looked at that face in midair, watching it shift from pure rage to shock, and then to sheer panic. And dropped a casual, breezy comment, "Not a bad power bank." Then, you raised the Titan's right arm. In the very next second, 100-meter-long, ghostly blue plasma blade snapped out with a vicious hum. The moment the lightsaber formed, the surrounding air ignited from the extreme heat. Twisting and warping, the ground below even started melting into crimson glass. Lu Qianlei instantly felt the true, creeping chill of death. He couldn't care less about his dignity anymore. Spinning around, ready to turn into a flash of lightning and run for his life. Too bad, too late, the Titan just swatted at him, like a pesky mosquito. It casually swung that 100-meter plasma greatsword. There was no massive boom, just a ghostly blue arc of light, flashing and vanishing in an instant. The next second, the sky tore wide open. That entire field of lightning was sliced cleanly in half, like a hot knife through butter. A massive gash ripped straight across the heavy, leaden clouds, and directly below that gash, one of the Lu family's iconic 200-meter skyscrapers let out a sickening, ear-piercing screech. Then, along a diagonal cut as smooth as a mirror, the top half slowly slid right off. Boom, only then did the delayed, deafening roar finally crash over the city. One sword strike split the clouds, shattered the lightning domain, and sliced a building in two. Lu Qianlei looked down at his chest, staring at the scorched burn left by the sheer force of the blade's wake. His skin had split open, a thin red line of blood seeping out. It was so close, just an inch closer, and he would be dead. In this very moment, all his pride as a so-called Tier 5 powerhouse was completely crushed. All that remained was pure, unadulterated terror. So, without a second thought, he turned into a streak of lightning, fleeing for his life toward the restricted zone. He actually ran, the mighty patriarch of the Lu family. A Tier 5 lightning awakened, with the entire city watching, scurried away like a frightened, stray dog. But you just watched that fading streak of electricity, and coldly muttered, "You really think you can run?" The next second, you raised your hand and pointed. "Jarvis, lock onto the target, charge the main star destroyer cannon." In a flash, the massive, glowing red eye on the Titan's chest surged in brightness 10,000 times over. A blinding, piercing white light violently converged within it. The sheer energy output warped and shuddered the space around it, as if the entire world was about to be sucked into a void of pure white light. The red targeting reticle locked dead onto Lu Qianlei. And then, you pressed fire. Boom, the world seemed to go dead silent. A pure white plasma beam, over 10 meters thick, erupted from the Titan's chest. Wherever that light passed, the air, the dust, every ounce of matter and sound, was completely wiped from existence. In the blink of an eye, it caught up to the fleeing Lu Qianlei. And before the mighty Tier 5 patriarch even had the chance to look back, it incinerated him. From his physical body, down to his very soul, erasing his entire existence, leaving absolutely no trace behind. He was completely vaporized. A Tier 5 powerhouse standing at the peak of the wasteland didn't even have the time to let out a scream. But the beam didn't stop after erasing Lu Qianlei. It kept going, blasting straight toward the deepest part of the inner city, toward the wall that symbolized the absolute order and class division of the mega-corporations. The impregnable inner ring wall. And then, something even more terrifying happened. That massive wall, forged entirely from solid black alloy, standing just as tall as the outer perimeter, silently melted away the instant the beam struck it. Vaporized, dissolving into nothingness. A massive, gaping hole over 100 meters wide was instantly blasted right through it. Soon after, violent spider web cracks started spreading from the hole, stretching out along tens of kilometers of the towering wall. A few seconds later, the deafening crash of the explosion finally echoed through the air. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire massive wall of the inner ring, along with the elite's 100-year reign, came crashing down. Dust and smoke blasted into the sky. Half the city was swallowed by a massive gray cloud. The walls of the old world had finally been torn down by your hands. After the battle, the Titan dismantled itself, splitting back into 10 Rager mechs. As for you, you piloted Unit 1, pushing forward to the Liu family estate. The wealthy elites lining the streets, their guards, their servants. Anyone who could kneel, dropped to their knees. Anyone who hid, shivered in terror. The whole city was dead silent. As for Liu Zi, he had already scurried into the underground bunker deep inside the estate, cowering in a corner, shaking like a leaf. His pants were completely soaked. His mind was utterly broken. Too bad, it was useless. Your Rager mech ripped the bunker's massive steel roof right off with a single hand. Sunlight and the shadow of cold steel slammed into the darkness below. Liu Zi looked up, and the moment he saw that glowing, crimson mechanical eye, he practically lost his mind on the spot. The very next second, a massive mechanical hand reached down and scooped him up like a helpless little chick. Inside the cockpit, you just sat in silence, staring at the main screen, looking at that face, completely twisted in absolute terror. You remembered that face all too well. It was him, the one who drove Shen Yao to her end. It was him, the one who dragged you through hell. It was him, who stripped away your humanity, turning you into this relentless, vengeance-seeking king of machines. So, you didn't say a single word. True revenge doesn't need some flashy speech. You just slowly tightened your fingers. Outside, the mech's giant metal hand copied your movement, slowly closing in. No, no. Amidst the sickening crunch of the metal grip crushing down, Liu Zi went completely limp under the immense crushing force. Crimson liquid dripped down through the gaps of the metal fingers, like paying off a dark debt that was way overdue. The ultimate payback was finally yours. You opened your hand, letting his lifeless remains drop like trash into the ruins below. Then, you slowly turned around. The glowing crimson eye swept across the entire estate. Every single member of the Liu family, every spoiled elite from the inner walls, all of them were groveling in the dirt. They didn't even dare to look up. The whole city was dead silent. You casually lit up another cigarette, taking a long, deep drag. Looking out over the city you had just crushed underfoot, you didn't feel that empty feeling people always talk about. There was no sense of closure from getting your revenge, either. Quite the opposite, only one thought echoed in your mind: it's still not enough. Firepower, it's never enough. But right at that exact moment, things took a crazy turn. Down in the ruined estate, right above Liu Zi's broken remains, a bizarre, blood-red beam of light shot down out of nowhere, completely swallowing his body. The very next second, Jarvis's alarm blared louder and more frantic than ever before. Warning: unknown high-dimensional biological energy invasion detected. Threat level: unknown. Target's genetic sequence is undergoing an unknown mutation. Higher-order recombination in progress. You toss your cigarette butt aside and snap your gaze upward. Inside that blood-red pillar of light, that mangled corpse starts squirming, moving in a way that completely defies all logic. Fusing together, reconstructing, it's like something that doesn't belong in this world is using Liu Zi's husk to reach out into ours. And yet, there's no terror in your eyes. Not a single trace of backing down. Quite the opposite, actually. Those eyes of yours, usually so calm they seem almost dead, suddenly flare up with something twisted. A fanatic, almost feverish kind of excitement. The corners of your lips curl up into a smirk, like you've finally found a prey worth hunting. You stare dead into that bloody pillar of light, and let out a low chuckle. Looks like